was quite a pause. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Arham.
My name is Elias.
And this is Shelve right. Our problem statement is that basically in 1977, some mathematicians at the University of Chicago, they did a survey of their library and found that of all the books that were recorded as missing, actually like 35% of them were actually somewhere inside of the library, just misplaced on the wrong shelves. And so this is probably due to human error. So the people responsible for putting the books back into the right places, and also the people that, they might pick out a book and then decide they don't want it and then they put it in the wrong place. So then, in a big library, this can get kind of out of hand, and then you could end up with a lot of books that are lost. So we got a little bit more background about this by doing our own research, and found that of DIST librarians, approximately 41% had to spend 1 to 3 hours reshelving books every single day. So that takes up a lot of the time that they have. A small percentage of them actually had to spend way more than that, actually above 6 hours a day. So it was about 3.4%. And we interviewed our librarian, Miss Alexander, and she told us that one thing that they try to do to help keep the time down is they have a bunch of librarian helpers, or they're sometimes called pages. And this can be an issue, especially in public school libraries, because they have to use students, and sometimes they're not as experienced with the shelving system, so that could be a big issue.
As we mentioned before, we sent out a survey to the accessory library, and we asked them how much time they spend shelving books. 55.2% said that they spent between 30 to 1 hour, and 41.4% said they spent 1 to 3 hours, and some spent 3 to 6 hours.
And this is just an example, like a mock-up example of what could happen in a public school library. So we got our friend to model for us. Some kids who are starting off new with the system, they might not know it very well. The standard system for shelving in libraries is called the Dewey Decimal System. I don't know if you guys heard about that. I learned about it when I was in elementary school. But it can get kind of complicated and overwhelming for some people. And so some high school students might just give up on trying to learn it, and then they just become extremely lazy when they're putting the books back, which can become an issue. And so some further justifications for why we wanted to tackle this problem. Purdue University found that 20% of all of the books that they had in the library were actually missing at some point. This was either due to them just being completely lost or them being misshelved. And in this example, we found that, what we found was that one of the bigger concerns is that since the library is a source of education for most people, they come there to learn, this can become a big issue, because if they come to the library and they have trouble trying to figure out what books they need to do their research or to learn anything, it can become a hindrance for them. And for librarians, this can also be a big issue, because like we said, it takes quite a while for them to shelve all the books that they need to within a normal day. And librarians are basically better off doing something other than shelving books all day, because in reality, one of the main jobs of a librarian has to do with educating people and putting together organizations or things at the library to learn more.
A simple solution we got from the internet is, the first one is AROS. It stands for Autonomous Robotic Shelving System. This robotic system can tell which books are missing, which books are out of places. It also uses a laser guide navigation to wheel around the libraries and figure out what's wrong with books, like which books are missing or which books are borrowed from the library. And this product is very expensive, and also it's very time consuming and it's very slow. robotic control system. It's only found like in 7 universities in America, and it can hold up to 1.2 million books. It's very it reduces time the librarians have to.
So it reduces the amount of time that it takes for them to retrieve the books because the entire system's automated. So basically what they do is they type into the computer the book that they need, and then they basically have like an entire robotic arm thing going into one of the shelves and pulling out the books that they need. And the drawbacks are that it's extremely expensive. It costs millions of dollars to put a system like this in place. And if something goes wrong, the amount of it takes a lot of maintenance to do. Like, it's expensive and very time consuming to get it back in working order.
The manual system, it's standard in most places, like public libraries. Librarians are they have to pick the books and they put them by themselves manually. And also it requires training and understanding of the library. And also it's time consuming.
So with our proposed solution, we wanted to basically build upon the manual system, basically just putting in books by hand, by reducing the amount of time that it takes to do that, making it easier. And so our proposed solution was to make an easy-to-use like barcode system that someone who's shelving the books, all they have to do is the cart, or we'll go into this further, but basically they bring the books around with them, and then whenever they scan the book, it just tells them, okay, you have to go to this specific shelf, and then you just go directly there and put the book in. And the program would scan, like I said, the book and then show you the location.
We said on the survey we sent to the librarians, we asked this question: would it be helpful to have a product that used a barcode to indicate the correct shelf where the book belongs? 70% of people or librarians said it would be helpful, and 31% said no.
So when we got this response, we knew that the direction that we were going in was good because we knew that there was an interest in our design idea. And so these are our design criteria.
Track multiple books. We want our product to not have a limit on certain amount of books we have to put in. Easy to install. You just have to have a basic Excel knowledge to install this product or solution. Easy to use. And we want to be strong, and we don't want to be fragile. And clear indication of function.
So this is one of our concept drawings that we did early on as to what we wanted it to do. So what you can see in this picture is that we have a drawing of a shelf. So in libraries, they put all the books that they need to put back into the shelves on a cart so that they could just wheel them around and then put them in the right places. So we did a concept of that, and what we did was we were thinking of implementing like a shelf where you could have this system in place for that. And on that you can see we have a barcode scanner and that's a display that could give you the information that you need. So this was just a concept of how our design could be implemented in the future.
This is me coming up with the idea with the product solution.
And so what we decided to do to create this, it was basically a program. Like we said, we wanted it to be easy to use and easy to install. So what we did was we decided to use an Excel spreadsheet. And so if you guys don't know, Excel has a coding system in place. It's called Visual Basic, and so that's what we use to code our program. And so this is just an example of me coding using it, and the code up there is for the search system that we would use. So when we scan a book, this code would figure out where the book is in our list and then tell us what location it needs to be on. So this is just an example of how you use the scanner. Just like any standard scanner, you just go up to the barcode and then scan it. And so this is an excerpt from our list. We got this this list thanks to our librarian, Ms. Alexander. And so we implemented this into our system. to test it. And this is our interface that we would use to figure out the information that we need. So what you would do is basically the find button, you'd open that up, and then it would give you a little text box. And what you would do from there is you would just scan a book, the barcodes that were already on the book from the DIST system, and then it would automatically enter it into the box, click enter, and then what it would do is it would output this information. So the barcode would be there at the top, and the information at the bottom. So you have the name of the book, the shelf number, and then the call number, which is also used for figuring out where the location of books are.
This is the map I created for our libraries.
Yeah, so what we also decided to do on top of that, to make it even easier, is we coded it so that after it gives you the shelf location as a number, it also pops up with a map. And so then this is just an example of mock-up map that we did. He designed, he went inside of our library and then drew it out. And we numbered all the shelves with the numbers corresponding to each one of the shelves. And then what it would do is when it says, okay, so let's say the book that I scanned happens to be on shelf 12. Then what it would do is it would put up a little star next to it. Right? In this case, it's the shelves between 206 and 210. It puts a little star there. So you would know, like if you were looking at the map, okay, that's where I'm supposed to go. And then you just go in there, quickly put the books that you're supposed to put in, and then move on to the next set. And so this is how we tested it. So our objective was to determine the amount of time it would take for a librarian or a librarian helper to shelve 10 random books with and without using our system. So the first step was to, of course, choose those 10 random books that we would use. Then we would label the shelves in the library with the numbers corresponding to the stuff we have on our list. Then we would choose our librarian or librarian helper. In our case, we used a librarian helper to do this. And then we would mix up the books so that they're not all in order, then give them to our test subject to test, or to put them back correctly. And then we would time how long it would take before and after using our system, and then we would assess the accuracy in which they were able to actually achieve that task. Okay, so this is, I set up the test in our school library. So what we did was we picked out the random books. So Elias helped me with that. He picked out the random books for me, and I scanned them into our system to make sure that they were in there. And then what we did was we labeled each of the library shelves with a unique sticky note with a number. And then after that, like when we shuffled it, we gave it to our friend Pedro, who we've seen previously do a presentation. He actually happens to be a librarian helper, so that was really convenient. And so he was able to go in and scan the books and then figure out where they were supposed to go correctly using our system. And so here's a graph showing the time before and after. So before, it took him a total of 5 minutes and 18 seconds to do it correctly, but afterwards, it actually reduced it to 3 minutes and 38 seconds. So we know that there was an effect. And on top of that, when we observed him actually, just a personal observation, I was there observing him when he actually did the test, and what I noticed was that the thing that took the largest amount of time was basically just figuring out where the right shelf was. So when he actually was able to get to the shelf and like figure out in order where the book was supposed to go, that was the fastest point. Actually figuring out where the shelf was to begin with was the biggest issue, and so I feel like our solution really helped with that. And so it showed that it decreased the amount of time by 100 seconds to only do 10 books. So it was still pretty significant, which ended up being a 31% decrease in total. And so if you think about it, within an hour, if someone would normally take an hour to shelf books, it would reduce that by almost 20 minutes. So for each hour, it would end up being 40 minutes, like in total, instead of 1 hour.
During concert, we used We use the the basic software to code. We did the coding, and we did graphic design to come up with the library design. And we use the Excel spreadsheet to put our books and stuff.
Alright, so some reflections on our design. So using Excel, I think, was a good choice because it means that it would be way easier for us to implement our system, especially for high school public libraries like DISD, because there is no fancy or special program that needs to be installed. All you would have to do is download our spreadsheet or Excel file, and then what you would have to do is just enter in the list of books that you probably already have. So in our case, Miss Alexander already had an entire list, and I would assume that most libraries do. And one of the biggest issues that we had with doing our project was time management. And so a good improvement to just basically the entire design process would have been to have a better schedule to keep up with all of our objectives. And getting our own research done by serving librarians I think it was a good idea because we got firsthand knowledge about what they needed and what they didn't need. And the fact that we knew that 70%, or around almost 70%, said that they would be interested in our design meant that we were basically, like I said previously, we were going in the right direction. This is something that they would definitely want. So some improvements to our design would have been to, like in our concept designs, integrate it better with the cart. Right now, how it would work is you would basically have a computer with a barcode scanner combined with it. And so that could be kind of hard depending on the shelf that you have. And so what would have been good is if we integrated it with like our own custom shelf that we built like on top of the book cart. And we could have displayed the information more clearly since if you look back previously at the display that we had showing that information, it was all done in Excel, and so then that could be kind of, it looks a little too boring and hard for somebody to keep focus on. And so we could have used a more compact barcode scanner as well. So the barcode scanner that we used was like a handheld, like a standard barcode scanner. What would have been great is if we could get it like on the shelf, like on the side of the shelf. We have like one of those scanners like you see at Target or whatever, where you're trying to figure out the price of a product. We basically have one of those and you just go underneath it and then it scans it immediately. And so then these are some of the people that we want to recognize for helping us with this. So Ms. Combs, thank you for helping us stay on track and keeping up with our work. Ms. Alexander definitely helped in a lot of ways. She helped us with getting first-hand experience from her by interviewing her. She also allowed us to communicate with the rest of the DISD librarians, which was great for getting even more data. And then she also provided us a list of the books inside of the library, which definitely helped us with testing our solution. And so then thank you to those DISD librarians. And to Pedro Cotigny, who, like we said previously, he presented here, but he also helped us with the test. All right, so that's the end of our presentation.
I just have a couple of clarifying questions in my mind, and then I have just a couple of general comments. Okay? My first question is, was it your idea to actually install a scanner shelf on the cart itself? I didn't know whether the cart and the shelf were separate, or if you had actually proposed that it would be installed.
So when we were coming up with ideas for our design, it was actually one of the, like we said, it was a concept idea that we had. When it came to actually coming up with our solution, we weren't able to do it because a lot of the time we wanted to be focused on fleshing out the actual program.
But I'm not saying that it came to fruition, I'm asking it was your intent to actually install a
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number two, are you proposing to do away with the current Dewey Decimal System?
No, I think that the Dewey Decimal System definitely has its place, especially amongst librarians. Our purpose is mainly to help those who, especially in DISD public schools, a lot of the time, like I said, that they need helpers that are high school students. And so then a lot of them they just simply don't want to learn an entirely new system and just to shelve books. And so having a very simple and easy to use program would definitely help at that more basic level. And furthermore, I know that some libraries, they have a volunteering system where they get volunteers to help them with that. And so then they're only there for like a certain number of hours. And so then they don't have enough time to learn the Dewey Decimal System.
But this is an alternative to that.
Yes.
It's not, you're not combining this with the Dewey Decimal. This is a separate system.
Yes, it's a simplified system for those who aren't librarians.
How is, again, there was another question I didn't understand. If you scan the book, is it supposed to light up on a shelf on a chart? Where that shelf is?
So,
I wasn't quite sure about that. I didn't know if that's what you were telling us. Now, if I scan a book, I look on a chart and it lights up on a chart where that shelf is to put the book.
So what it does is...
is that right or not? Am I not right?
In a way, yes. So what we had was it gives you basically a table with the information, like the name and then the shelf number and then the call number. And then next to that would be our map that we had shown.
Okay.
And then the map would show you the exact location.
Where the location
Yes.
was. And my last comment is, if this is an alternative to the Dewey Decimal System, how I'm foreseeing maybe some expansion issues, because if I'm numbering all the books, and books are coming and going. You're getting new books, getting rid of old books. And the nice thing about the Dewey Decimal is that no matter how many you add or subtract, there's still, if I'm making sense, there's still a way to handle that. Whereas if I get correct, I'm going to have a shelf that has these numbers on it. But what happens if there's a book in between and it's a new book, but there's not a number? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I understand completely what you mean. So let me go back. So this is, like I had mentioned previously, was a list that we used for this. And so basically all you would have to do to add a new set of books is you would just add it to this spreadsheet. So if you think about Excel and how it has different sheets, so then the first sheet would be your master list of all the books that you had in it, and this is that list actually. And so then within this, all you would have to do is at the bottom of the list just add it in with the barcode number that is on the book and the shelf number, and then it would automatically enter it into the system. Yes, yes.
Okay, two really quick comments and then one question. First comment is you have great speaker voices, the tone and the volume, so good job on that. The next biggest thing, and this is for everybody in the room, your intro and your closing are your most important. Those are your most important things, always. So you always want to start strong and end strong. When you first started, you went over a study, and it was literally, I think it was from 77.
Yes.
That's when I was born.
Yeah,
so,
that is a long time.
Yeah, thank you. So.
I'm sorry.
Anyways, yes. I'm going to add a third comment. I'm just kidding. Yes, so it's very, very old, and I think you could have found current data. Now, you did have other studies, but your intro is your most important. Right off the bat, I just kind of was like, their research is weak, just because of that. So be careful. Your research should be very recent as possible, okay? The next comment, I'm through the comments. The question is, and I think this relates back to what Mr. Henderson was talking about. As you add books or you take away books, the way that I am understanding this is you can add it in that spreadsheet all day long, but that doesn't measure the thickness of the book compared to the dimensions of the shelf. And your physical layout can change, so you're constantly having to go in there and update your code to the location. And for everybody in the room, engineering is about efficiency, always. So like if you're in Technology Student Association and you're going and you're doing a little wooden bridge or something, it's not about what can hold the most weight, right? It's about what can hold the most weight that doesn't weigh a lot itself. It's always about efficiency. So am I understanding that correctly, and that the 100 seconds per book is going to be way outweighed with the maintenance of maintaining the code?
Well, I understand that, yes, this is actually one of the bigger problems with our design. But I would also like to mention that even in the standard system that already exists, you would have to enter the book manually by yourself anyways. So I don't think that since we were trying to improve on just that by hand system that already exists, that problem still exists. So even if we didn't use our solution, it would still exist. And so I think that it would still reduce the amount of time, but definitely based off of what you mentioned, if we had improved it by accounting for that, it would have decreased the amount of time even more.
Yeah, I think the current system, though, doesn't pinpoint it to an exact shelf, and that's why it's able to kind of flow and have this kind of movement back and, forward on where it is. But yes, all right, very good job.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have a group from Woodrow.
Yeah!